very young age, because even like in elementary school, I didn't want anybody to know that I was a lesbian, because capital L, small l, the difference doesn't exist in speech, and that's how I spent my life, working with sexuality because of Sappho. And then like by middle school, it was an all-girls school, all the girls would come up to me and say, teach me about the secret arts. I'm like, what? Well, you're a lesbian. Because I left the island of Lesbos and went to Athens, when I was like 3. And there just aren't that many, born and raised.
But what's funny? In ancient Greek, that was one of the societies where men taught other young men how to have sex, even though it was not considered a homosexual thing.
Exactly.
They were just teaching other young men how to have sex. Yeah. And we're missing that, actually, today.
I agree.
These young men need to learn how to have sex.
I agree.
And the lesbians as well. Everybody does. Equal opportunity learning.
I agree. This is one of my pet peeves in this show. I always talk about, the extreme lack of sex ed. And that's the reason why we have not just repression, but like rape.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Because people they don't know how to express their sexuality.
Yeah. And this mentorship from like an older to a younger, same gender, safe place, just showing how it's done and letting them practice it before they go out there and mate. It's amazing.
Absolutely. All of us need a coach.
Yes, I agree. So I'm speaking to today's guest. She's known as America's sex educator.
Yes.
Dr. Sonjia Kenya is an Ivy League educated sexologist and associate professor of medicine at the University of Miami here, and the author of Sex in South Beach. So she creates in her work solutions for sex problems and educates physicians and patients on sexual functioning, and she also does programming here in South Beach to help adults who need any sort of like sensual and sexual encouragement and re-education camps. She lives with her husband and son here in South Beach, and she volunteers at women's shelters in Miami, which I also have for years.
That was
Lotus
actually
House.
one of the things that I loved most about you is we have the same volunteer assignment.
I know. I love Constance. I don't know who.
She's wonderful. I'm on the board there as well. Yeah,
she's amazing. Oh my God,
she's done so many wonderful things for
she's
Miami.
Like my spiritual crush.
Yes, she's a wonderful
exactly.
thing. Not a lesbian though.
Oh yeah, she's a lesbian.
Oh, she is. I don't know if we should talk about this on the air because I did not know. She was married. Let's not talk. Constance's wonderful. She's a wonderful woman.
We love her in both when she's straight and when she's lesbian.
Absolutely. Well, that's another thing. So many women are sexually actually fluid. There was a study I read a couple of years ago, and I wrote about it. There was a scientist, I wish I could remember what university she was working out of, but she followed women, a cohort of women, for 27 years. More than 70% of those women changed their sexual identity over the 27 years.
I love it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm bisexual. I've always identified as bisexual, and it got me in a lot of trouble many times. Because I'm a feminist. So there was a big part of like the feminist community that felt that if you ever have sex with a woman, you have to identify as a lesbian, and otherwise it's like a betrayal of whatever. And I have felt, very strongly that both genders are mostly fluid, and not identifying so vehemently at any time is positive because it allows you to experiment, Otherwise you go back in the closet, you're like, let's say queer, and then you have to go right back in the closet to try straight sex, if you feel you want to.
Absolutely. Isn't it funny?
I know.
Isn't it funny that when people, I went to the GLMA conference a couple of years ago, that's the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association conference. The university sent me there, and you're looking at me, so I'm hot, right? So
yes.
Some of the girls were trying to pick up on me, asked me out, and I was like, I like you, you're so nice, but I'm straight. Nobody asked me, is this just a phase? Everybody was like, it's okay, we can go out anyway. Even though you're straight, we can go out anyway. So I think it's so interesting. But when someone comes out as queer or lesbian or gay, they're like, are you sure?
Oh, no, all the queer people, You say straight to a queer, it's like, oh, okay, wonderful, even better.
Right.
You're like, I fantasize about that. I mean, let's turn everybody.
Exactly. Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, please. How you came to be a
sexologist.
A sexologist, academic sexologist in South Beach, where you started from and how you came to this work.
Well, I like to think I was one of the most sexually disabled people ever born.
Wow.
And when I say that, it's just I grew up in the hood, a very low-income environment. I'm from San Francisco, California. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, a very open, liberal city. Mm-hmm. I went to my first lesbian wedding when I was 7 years old.
Oh.
So I had a very liberal, open family, but we were poor. I was raised by a single mother in a low-income environment, and there were no role models for romantic relationships. No role models for positive sexuality. In low-income environments, that's where the worst sex things happen. Then I got a scholarship to go to Catholic school. So I went to Catholic school, which further deteriorated my sexual... Because,
oh, my God.
There's no sex. In Catholicism, sex doesn't happen.
Yeah, shame and guilt and shame.
I remember asking once our health teacher, what does it mean when a woman gets wet? And she told me, you'll find out when the time is right. I'm like, that was it.
She didn't say you're going to go to hell right now?
Well,
damn.
Well, a few of my friends graduated pregnant from that Catholic school.
Like
so I was San Francisco Catholic, right? And then when I went to college, that's when HIV was just soaring through the nation. And being a straight black woman, they were basically like, society told you, if you're a straight black woman, you're going to get HIV. And that's just the way it was.
Right.
So I was very, very interested in learning how to have good sex. So it's fulfilling, because all my girlfriends in high school were like, oh, it hurt and they bled and they didn't enjoy it. And I was like, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college, you're like, well, I don't want to get HIV. And this is so I needed to figure out on my own, because nobody was trying to teach me.
No one. That's the whole...
Right. Nobody. I did
a conversation is that no one is teaching you.
No one's teaching. Right. So I just embarked on a lot of self-study, and when I graduated, I was not even thinking about sexuality at all for a career. I actually my first master's degree is in nutrition, because I thought I was going to be a nutritionist. And I went to New York City. I was at Columbia University, and that's when the HIV medicines really exploded to be very effective. So people with HIV stopped dying and they started living. However, a side effect of the medications was obesity. So remember, I'm in school for nutrition. So my first research...
Seeing HIV patients.
Right. So my first research experience was doing a diet and exercise study on HIV-positive obese women. So what I learned in that was that none of these women were enjoying sex when they contracted HIV. And I thought, oh my God, that is so sad.
Can you imagine? You have a lifetime of illness and you haven't even come.
Right, exactly. I'm like, that's like, you went to the airport and you didn't catch the plane. Not only the plane crashed on your damn head, right?
I know. Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So I was like, wow, that is terrible. And my mom owns a company called Divorce with Dignity. So I'm very familiar with divorce. And I noticed a really strong similarity between HIV positive women and women who were divorcing. They hated their partners and didn't want to have sex with them anymore. And I thought, I wonder if we could teach people how to have better sex, if we could reduce divorce and also reduce HIV and other sex problems. Because no one knows how to have good sex. And my goodness, if you liked having sex enough to marry someone, then sex should at least be something that helps keep you together. And the same with HIV. If you like someone enough to put your life on the line for them, then the sex should be like banging, right? It needs to be the best sex of life. So I very informally...
And that's especially true with women of color.
It is.
Because it's just, the truth is the community is more repressed.
It really is. Nobody's talking about sex. And with respect to that, with women of color, it's especially dangerous because for every black woman who's of maritable age, like age 18 and over, for every 100 black women that's of maritable age, there's only 80 black men alive. Alive.
Not to include incarcerated.
No, that includes the incarcerated men and the men on the down low and the gay men.
And the gay men!
So you have 100 black women and you only have 80 black men. Some of them are in jail. Some of them are on the down low. So I would say date white ladies. Sorry.
I know. Date white. Joke. Those are like bad numbers.
Those are really bad numbers.
That date outside.
So you have to start looking outside of the race just for your health. I mean, just for health's sake, because when you're sharing...
Statistical health.
And here in Miami, Liberty City, unfortunately, is estimated to have the highest HIV rates in the nation. in the entire United States. Yes. It's estimated that 9% of the community is HIV positive, which is scary. That should scare everyone. But we know Miami-Dade has the highest HIV rates in the nation.
Well, yeah, anyway. We do in general because we have a strong gay population, so that comes with it.
But not only that, it's still a leading cause of death for people of color. Can you believe HIV is a leading cause of death for people of color? And we have everything. I have to do this. You know, we have medications before you have sex that you can take and you will never get HIV. So if you know you can't use a condom, you need to talk to your doctor about PrEP. And your doctor can put you on PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, and then you won't get HIV. All the gay guys in South Beach are on PrEP.
Oh, they're all on.
They're having unprotected sex and they're not getting HIV.
Yes.
And then we also have PEP, which you can take up to 3 days after sex and you won't get HIV. So you can, if the condom breaks, if you got raped, or if you just got drunk and had sex without a condom, or if you weren't drunk and had sex without a condom, you have 72 hours to get PEP in you, post-exposure prophylaxis, and you will not get HIV. Unfortunately, in Miami, we have the lowest utilization of the prevention HIV medications and the highest rates of new HIV infections. So if people would use all of those prevention medications, we could live in a world where there's no more HIV. And you know how it's true? You know how you know that what I'm saying is true? Because that person who's in the Oval Office right now even announced it on his last conference that we're going to end AIDS in the United States within the next 10 years. I consider myself a smart person. I did not pay anyone to go to school. I actually, like you, I had to do the real applications. I really had to get in based on, you know, the space between my two ears.
I know.
So,
my parents are still in Greece. I had no one.
Right. And so, so I'm saying if the person in the Oval Office right now is saying we can end HIV, I'm just saying I think I'm smarter than that person. If they think,
I think so too.
Right. So that's how you know it's true. But he actually released a lot of money. We're applying for some now because we are able to end HIV now. So it's important that your listeners, everyone we know knows you can take medication before sex. PrEP and PEP, no more HIV. And if you're HIV positive, then you have access to free health care through the Ryan White Act. And you can live the rest of your life being healthy and happy as long as you take your medications.
Yes.
And so most people don't know. So we're done. I think about HIV like I think about diabetes.
No.
If you take care of yourself,
yeah,
nobody even needs to know that you're diabetic. You can live a long, happy, healthy life. If you don't take care of yourself, you'll get sick.
Right, yeah.
So the same thing.
I mean, your immune system is slightly compromised, but that's it. You know, that's the extent of it, which would be true with diabetes or anything else you might have. Yeah,
right,
that's
a
condition you live with, and that's that. It doesn't have to affect your sex life or your self-esteem or your sense of yourself in the world.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. So
yeah.
So I actually that was my route.
A big part of it is education, right? Teaching everyone all of
these things.
Yeah.
So back to how my journey.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was working in HIV in graduate school, and very informally, I work with all doctors and nurses in hospitals. Very informally, I started giving people relationship advice because many people don't know it, but the medical community, doctors and nurses, not a population that thrives in good sexual relationships.
No.
If anyone's ever dated a doctor, I know there's a lot of people nodding their head out there like, girl, you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of sex problems. So I was able to help my colleagues in the hallways. And it's just through my own trial and error.
That's how I came to it.
Right?
I just always did it.
I was just trying to help them. And then it started working. They started enjoying their love life more. And then people evolve sexually. People have been married for a long time. Some of my colleagues are like, I want to try something new. And my husband or my wife or my partner isn't really down with that. How do I talk to them about that? So I started developing different communication techniques. And then, single people are trying to find someone who they want to settle down with or someone who they want to establish a long-term relationship with. So I started developing dating programs and applying them to my own life as well. I have a rule. It's in my book, Sex in South Beach. When I was single and dating, I had the 10-time rule, which is I don't have sex with someone just one time. It's 10 times or no times.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and very good rule. Because the first time tells you nothing.
Nothing. And if you can't commit to me for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I said 10 times of sex shouldn't be that hard. If you can't commit to having sex with me 10 times, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen after, whether we want to continue. But you have to have a little time to get to know each other.
Yeah, exactly. And give people a chance. So many of us, especially now that the dating apps make it so easy to change people around, like fresh meat. They do it once, they do it twice, and they're like, okay, I got all the intel I need. I'm like, if the guy came really fast, or if the guy was like, hanging whatever way, or if he didn't go down on you, it doesn't mean he never will.
Right.
It's just, this is the first time. And also, we don't know how to speak about sex, which is what this podcast is about. So on top of the fact that they're nervous and they don't know your body, they don't know how to talk about it in advance. They can't even look you in the eye and say, what do you like? This is what I like. No one talks about it. They just go at it without any conversation about sex. Conversation about all things that are irrelevant.
Everything. They'll tell you about their grandmother.
Yeah.
They'll tell you about their dog, their grandmother's dog. Their grandmother's dog, but they will not. They'll tell you about how much they pooed last week.
Yeah.
But they will not. It is amazing. I say it's so much easier to have sex than talk about it, which is why your show is so important.
Yeah.
Which is why this
really
work is
heartbreaking.
It is. We have to
normalize
normalize it.
Do it to talk about it.
I know. I'm like, we really need to normalize these conversations.
Exactly.
Everyone's getting their information from porn, and porn is lying to them.
Yes, of course it's lying to them.
I don't know any woman who wants 3 men coming on her face simultaneously. Like,
I know. And it's lying to them about what we look like.
Oh, what we look like, what we act like. Those are actors and actresses. That's not what people don't sound. They're acting.
No, we don't all sound the same, and we don't have the same looking vaginas. It's exactly.
All clean shaving, no hair, right?
Yeah, I know. With these like tiny matchy labia.
Perfect.
One is never bigger than the other. What?
Right.
It's
perfect.
not real life.
No, it's not. They're also. I remind everyone, paid actors. I interviewed porn actors before. And do you know that if porn actors like each other, they won't put them in a movie together? So if they're in a couple, because they really don't want that authentic connection to develop, they need to keep them acting in their role.
Right.
So it's completely fake. And if they get too excited, they separate the actors, and then they have fluffers on the set to keep them excited, but not too excited, so that they can still act out the scene.
Yeah.
So we want to remember that it's all acting.
The women I interviewed who still worked in porn, they were turned off by sex, especially heterosexual sex. Maybe they would sleep with women off the set. Some of them would get they would clamp down. The vagina would get so tight that they would have to take medication to relax. Like a muscle relaxant, do the work, do the acting, as you call it. But that's it. Like when it came to actually having sex for fun, they were done with it.
And the same, I have
friends. You would never imagine when you're there, whacking off, watching them, that's what's really happening.
And I have friends who are burlesque dancers here in Miami, and I love them. They turn everyone on with their burlesque performance, but they're the most vanilla girls in the bedroom.
Vanilla.
They're like, I just want a guy to cuddle. They're like, I like my boyfriend because the most, the riskiest thing he does is, what is it called when you put your face in a woman's breast?
That's what it is.
Yeah, I forget.
Motorboat.
Yes, I was going to say, what is it called?
Motorboat?
Motorboat, yeah. It was something, yes. I was like, I knew the guy in the room would know the term.
Yeah, that's not the sexual position, people. That's like cuddling. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's like cuddling. Yeah. She's like, oh, he just loves it. That's what turns him on. And it's funny that people who work in the industry, and I've heard a lot from strippers, the same thing. They really are just not.
Too.
Strippers hate men.
8 hours a day.
Those guys, they hate men. They never want to see. All they want is your money, guys. I tell you.
Yeah, all they think is the dollar. That's it. The dollar comes, they ignore the rest of the details, and they go. They've trained themselves.
Absolutely.
One track mind.
Which is why, actually, one thing about strippers that none of us really think about, they drink and do so much drugs to get through the night.
Yeah.
A lot of them actually end up in debt to the clubs because they have to pay their own drinking bill, which I kind of think the club should give them some comp drinks if you have to do that.
Oh, the women are exploited all around in every possible way. From the top models that make millions of dollars, it doesn't matter, you're still exploited as an object, until all the way to the local stripper at the strip mall in in the middle of nowhere where trackers only go, who make the least amount of money.
Every time we buy anything that's in a pink box costs more than something in a blue box. Our razors cost more.
Yeah,
we're just constantly, and that's legal. That they legally tax us on tampons, razor, that's crazy. It's called the luxury tax because we should just bleed out.
The shoes, the pants, the socks. It doesn't matter. The makeup, it's all Yeah, and we have to
whereas insurance covers Viagra, though. Insurance covers Viagra.
Exactly, and they won't even let the female Viagra. It's still not approved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there we go. But anyway, back to your journey. So you were giving relationship advice to everybody in the hospital,
and it just
Colombia.
Yes, and it just sort of started working, and I really started focusing then more on a professional way. But I'm finishing grad school, remember? So what are you going to do with your life? Now everyone expects me to take a job. They're like, you're going to go to work at New York University, at Princeton, at this, at that. And I was like, how am I going to tell everyone I really just want to help people have better sex? After all this, thank you. I just like to have some happier, healthier sex and help people have more.
Yeah. I had many of those moments in my life. I totally get it.
Yeah, so you're like, I want to be a serious academic, but I want to help people. Same thing. Why can't they be the same? So I ended up, I did work for the City University of New York, for Columbia University, for New York University. And then I took a job in the Cayman Islands at the medical school with the goal that I only had to teach 2 classes a week. And they gave me a house, they gave me a car, they paid your monthly expenses, and there's no income tax. And the reason why I did that was because I needed to transition into being a sexologist most of the time and a medical professor part of the time. So I still... let's say that was...
Why did you leave?
That's like 15 years later from when I made that move to the Cayman Islands. I'm still working on the transition. So in the Cayman Islands, that's when I really received the messages from the universe that this is where you need to be. In this space of helping people have better sexual relationships. It's a very wealthy island where there is no crime, no homelessness, no unemployment. However, very sexually repressed.
Yeah, all the islands are. At least for the women again, because the men, at least get around.
Oh yeah, the men get around. There's a lot of 14-year-old girls who get pregnant by the pastor, and they get on a plane to Miami to take care of the pregnancy because nobody believes in abortion on the island, of course. So, but I did a lot of radio shows on the island talking about masturbation. I did. I had a sex counseling office, an office where I helped a lot of people with their sex problems. I was working with the government entities. We were trying to get. We had no sexual harassment and stalking laws there, so we needed that. But we also had a lot of women who were going through abusive situations in their home, domestic violence, and so working with the government entities to help women achieve healthier sexual relationships or get out of unhealthy sexual relationships. So it was a really rewarding time for me. I got to establish my business. It's still the same name, Dignified Health Solutions, and it was so cool, I think, to be recognized by the government entities. I was going into corporations, doing lunchtime seminars, because, if your employees have better personal relationships at home and more fulfilling sexual relationships at home, they're going to be way more productive at work, and they're going to be able to get along with their colleagues much better. So it was really validating for me, being able to take it out of a personal one-on-one, let me help this person with their individual sex problem, to being able to go into the media. And I wrote a newspaper column every week, and the newspaper at one point, like, the government was trying to hire me, the newspaper's trying to hire me, I'm at the medical school, so it was very, very rewarding. Unfortunately, on a small island like that, there's not very many people to date. Everybody, and I was a single woman, and I was there for 3 years, and my motivation to move was when I was on a date with someone who I would not be on a date with if I was not on this island. It just was like a reckoning to me, like, would you date this guy if you weren't on an island? And the answer was a very, very clear no, you would not. So I was like, I've got to get back to the United States, because I had decided at that point the people who I wanted to date had to have similar values. I needed what I would call Western values. Like, it's really not okay for you to have 4 other girlfriends while we're married. I just needed a different...
Again, that's like that in culture. It's, and especially, at least the Caymans are better than, like, Jamaica. But the point is, even the Haitian community here, it still has a lot of those macho, standards.
Oh, in Miami, we're a city of immigrants. Basically all over Miami.
So a lot of machismo.
The Latin islands, the Black islands, the entire Caribbean.
The Hasidic community, the Russians who just arrived.
Yes. So
it's okay. Lots of like relearning and educating and training to do.
Oh my gosh! Then I established this business. I was so happy, and now I'm here. I was recruited by the University of Miami.
How did you come here? Oh, you came for the
I was recruited by the University of Miami to develop a community-based HIV program because we have the highest rates of new HIV infections in the nation. So I was recruited here very quickly. I moved the minute it's funny how quickly the universe works. I'm on this date. I'm like, I don't want to date guys like this. I went online, I applied for a job. I kid you not, 15 minutes later they called me, which never happens. In academia, they call you 15 years later. Yeah. And I know. You're like, I have a job in another country, but But they called me 15 minutes later. I flew in, I got the job. I moved very quickly here, and for 9 months I refused to date anybody. And I was just trying to establish my career, reestablish it here. It's a lot to learn. And also, how am I going to, now I have to redo, I have to be a sexologist again.
Right.
Now I'm back to academia. I'm full-time in academia. Now I need to get out. It's enough to teach doctors about sex. I got to do stuff.
Right.
So I spent 9 months implementing one of my own programs on me called Date with Dignity. That it's a date training program to train yourself to get what you want in your next relationship. Mm-hmm. And I put myself through the program as my own guinea pig, and I completed the program on a Friday. I completed the program on a Sunday. The following Friday night, I met my husband at happy hour at Smith & Wolenski's on the beach at a Friday happy hour.
That's funny.
And he encouraged me right away to submit an article to the newspaper, and I did, and it was called Bear in Brickell. We went around to all the bars in Brickell, and I asked, I was with my husband, who is a lawyer. We were dating at the time, and I asked 10 people, would you ever have sex with someone without a condom? I was interested because Miami-Dade has the highest rates of HIV. So every single person said no in the beginning. And then my husband, being a lawyer, said, why don't you change the question to, would you ever have sex with someone for the first time without a condom? Or could you think of a time when you would? And adding that's a very lawyeristic type of term. Right. Could you think of a time? What it did was, when I asked that, it made everyone think of that time when they did.
Yeah, if you say, have you ever had sex for the first time
without a condom? Everyone said no. Yes. No, well, everyone said no. I'm like,
have you or would you?
So have you ever, I have to look at the book, actually, to see what
I think have you is yes.
But everyone said no.
Would you is no. Because no one wants to. So it would be no to,
or could you think of a time when you would? And we added that, and everyone actually ended up saying yes. They just told us the truth at that point. They had sex without a condom.
Yeah, exactly.
We actually had 2 guys in the FBI telling me, they're like, I'd have sex with you without a condom. You're a professor at the University of Miami. You look clean.
Exactly.
You're in Brickell. You're paying $12 for a drink. I would have sex with you without a condom.
That's how we judge.
And then I wrote that
article.
There you go.
Speaking of again, economic discrimination, that's exactly what it is. It's like, oh, wait, the socioeconomic status is safe. So I'm going to have sex without a condom.
Absolutely, and it's terrible.
And it's crazy. Just because a guy has a degree, and some money doesn't mean that he's not infected, if that's what you're looking for. But that's how people judge.
And doctors are the riskiest ladies out there, I'm telling you. Because doctors know all the interventions that they can do to try to save themselves afterwards. Right. So they are the riskiest ladies.
And quite a few doctors, self-medicate with sex. I mean, they have to self-medicate with something, and sex has the least side effects. So if it's a high stress medical, job, that's what they do.
Yeah, go to the bar. I'm a doctor. I got some money. You buy,
Yeah, get a stripper, get whatever. Have a quickie, relax, go to sleep, start over.
Absolutely. And so the newspaper, I started writing a weekly sex column called Sex in South Beach. And a couple of years later, we turned it into a book. And the whole point of that was to come out to the university. I'm going to be all sexologists now.
Okay.
And so I did. It was like my coming out of the closet project.
Okay.
So I came out of the closet. I'm going to do this. I got a lot of pushback from the university. A lot. Is she a sex worker? We don't understand. And all kinds of craziness, because it's a lot of sexually repressed people working there. And from there, it's been so rewarding. I can tell you, I've really developed a lot personally and professionally, going from giving people personal advice in hallways, in elevators, to developing programs for small communities. Now I run programs, large programs at the university, educating people about sex. I meet with the breast cancer support group to talk about sex after cancer. I've won almost every award in Miami, from 20 under 40 to the the Miami-Dade Women's Health Commission giving me Woman of the Year. So when you're a sexologist, those things are really important because that means that I'm making some sort of progress in normalizing sex as an important part of our health.
Exactly.
And so that's where we are now, or that's where I am now, is really trying to help doctors, patients, people, everyone know that sexual satisfaction is such a critically important part of your overall health. And you're sick when you're not, when you are sexually unfulfilled or sexually frustrated, you are sick. It's just like being too stressed out, and we see the signs every day. Someone cuts you off in the highway, someone cuts in front of you at the grocery store. I guarantee they have not had any good sex lately.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And no, it's like any other source of anxiety. It makes you anxious, it raises your blood pressure, it like triggers your body to be unwell. And there is such easy treatment. There is like talk therapy, or there is medical treatment. There's actually medical interventions now hormonally also. So a lot of,
masturbation.
A lot of somatic problems though as well, like whatever, testosterone levels or whatever, ED or, all kinds of other issues that men especially, but women as well have had, they can be now treated medically. Right. So
right, but I think a lot
have
of
to go look for the solution.
I'm not a big proponent of saying just go to the doctors, because I think sex, from what I understand in my 20 years of being a professor at medical schools, is doctors didn't learn diddly about sex in medical school.
No, they
didn't. Like, sure. And when I was pregnant, going to my doctors all of the time, every single doctor I went to asked, "Can you have office hours in my office?" Because people have questions like, do I have to put the penis all the way in to get pregnant? Or do I have, like, basic questions like that. Like, people really want help. I do an event once a month called Date Night Special, where we take 5 couples out to strengthen their sensual connection.
Right, yeah.
I had a couple married for 16 years. She didn't like having anal sex, and they've been having anal sex for 16 years, and she never told her husband.
It's devastating.
And it is so, to have these safe spaces where you can learn ways to play with each other sexually, that's consensual.
Sorry, but that's like rape. She doesn't know it, so she doesn't call it that.
She did not know that she could have a voice. And now that is going to be a difficult conversation, because you have to try to figure out what we've been doing for the last 16 years. However,
I can't even imagine.
What we want to do is empower people to have these conversations in safe spaces and in fun ways. So I try to make the way I talk about sex a little lighthearted, because so many people get stressed out when talking about sex. They get anxious. They clam up. They feel like they're going to say something wrong. And the reality is, we're always thinking about sex. Whether or not you're having it, everyone's they're thinking about, why I'm not having sex. Why am I having sex? What, did I like the sex last night?
No, for sure. Everyone is always thinking about sex. Even the people who don't want to have it, who are asexual at the time or whatever, they're thinking about it. And actually, that's a very good time to practice talking about it. When you're not super horny and roaring to go, is a good time to practice talking about it.
Talking about it,
even
and
with
thinking
your friends,
about it. Absolutely.
Oh, exactly. That's what I try to push exactly that. That it's just like any other language. Pretend you have to learn French. Pretend you have to improve your Spanish. That's all it is. You just get the vocabulary out, and you learn by practice. If you have to practice in the mirror and say, this is what I like, this is what I want to do more of that I haven't tried, just do it. Memorize it and just spew it out.
Absolutely.
If that's what it takes the first
time. And even if
you're
nervous, authenticity is underrated. To say, I don't know how to say this. I'm nervous. I don't really know how to talk about it. But, when you go down on me, I really like the fat part of your tongue, the fatter part, when you lick my smaller lips up and down. And then when I'm almost there, could you make your tongue hard and pointy and stimulate my clitoral hood more,
right.
And those and to be able, I hope I sounded nervous and anxious, because that's what I was trying to do.
Well, you sounded very sexually literate, but okay. If she knows all those details, she won't be nervous.
But that was the whole reason I wrote my book, Sex in South Beach, was to help people have easy, fun, and informed conversations that lead to better sex. Each chapter is 2 or 3 pages. That's it. Right. And the whole reason is for you guys to read it together or talk about it together and give you a little tidbit to spark a conversation, because it's such a difficult thing to talk about, but it's such an important...
But it shouldn't be. It's like such a basic thing in life. It's the one thing we all share in common, despite our cultural, differences and oppressions. Around the world, everyone more or less has the same amount of interest, right, in sex. Absolutely. And we all procreate and have babies through it. So it's like holy and sacred and given to us by the gods. And we should honor it instead of like shame it, and we should see it from a place of light instead
Absolutely.
of a place of darkness. We should not hide it in the proverbial closet. No, we should just celebrate it.
We certainly should. Yeah. And unfortunately, we live in a society, the only way we talk about sex is porn or rape. That's it. Yeah. And I'm like, no, sex is like ice cream. Yeah. Lick it. It's supposed to be good. Yeah. Enjoy it. Savor it. Yeah. Sex can be fun. Remember that? Fun part of sex.
It's like meditative also. It's such an amazing release. Like at the end of it, physically on the somatic, hormonal, and, neural level, you feel so elated. It's just a cleanse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and what you said, I'm also, I just want to touch on it about rape. That yes, with the advent of the Me Too movement, there has been so much progress, and it has been life consciousness changing for so many women. But one of the the side effects is that there's much more emphasis on rape, on what shouldn't be done, on what's invasive, than what's positive. What can be done, what will be done, what should be done, all of the stuff that should come out. So I think that it's incumbent upon us women, because now we have the power of consent, we're the ones who should instigate sex, we're the ones who get to propose sex, we're the ones who get to have the conversation and say, this is what we like, because we have permission to. We have nothing to fear.
If I were a man, I would not even think about having sex with a woman unless she told me, I want to have sex with you.
Right.
And I think that is the upside.
I know, right?
That is the beauty of the Me Too movement. It is going to, what I hope, force society to go to a place where women have to say, I want to have sex with you.
Exactly.
I choose to have sex with
you. Hallelujah.
And if you're a man, you're a fool. If you have sex with a woman and she has not said that. And I mean, remember, I'm married to a lawyer. I would probably have a little consent form on my iPhone. And I'm like, let's sign this, okay? Just so nothing else comes back. Yeah. Because, people sometimes regret their decisions. And that's the other part with the Me Too movement. It's been very confusing to some people who regret their decisions and want to be part of the Me Too movement versus women who really have been violated and are now standing up saying that is not okay.
Well, I think that the Me Too movement has reinformed people, women especially, about what their boundaries are and what consent includes, because for so many it was a gray area, and so many women post sex lib felt that they should just say yes. They didn't know how to say no. They didn't like you're the woman you brought up with the anal sex, anal rape. Well, he's my husband. That's what he likes. So I have to go along with it. There is a huge history, many generations of women who felt they just had to go along. So the Me Too movement is kind of redrawing those definitions for women. So women who within recent memory gave into extreme pressure without wanting to, but also without saying no outright, are suffering.
Absolutely.
And they realize now what they've only felt before. It was a violation, it was an assault, it was rape. And I didn't even know it for sure to speak up.
Oh, you and me can probably think of, I can think of my first faculty meeting. I'm 20-something years old. The chair of the department at a faculty meeting said, Sonjia, you look good enough to eat. I didn't say anything.
Oh, no, you laughed.
I didn't know. Well, I was also the youngest person in the room. Yeah. There were 10 other adults there. Yeah. Nobody said anything. So you're like, I wish someone would say that to me today.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be a different story. But the Me Too movement has been wonderfully empowering, especially for young women who won't have to put up with, I have 20 or 15 years, how am I supposed to respond to that?
Exactly. Me too. Very much, especially if you work in this field and you speak about sex. I also, as I mentioned, had a sex column in New York for almost 10 years. So just writing about sex in a way, pigeonholes you as if just because you talk about it, it means that you will also do it indiscriminately, right? And sometimes if it was from a stranger, it was easy to just shut the door and speak truth. But if it was from someone I knew well or I worked well in a place of, a work environment where I didn't want to create conflict and bring, attention to myself as like not a team player, I would honestly giggle. And now I cringe because, I'm such a feminist. I worked my whole life to not, do like the cliche feminine response. And I would go like,
exactly.
Oh, God.
But we didn't have anyone to tell us. No one said, speak up.
But
and then you
translates.
Right, so I'm very proud of the young women who have started the Me Too movement. I feel really excited about the new generation of women.
Yeah,
and the one thing I do hope that they do, though, I think we do need to engage. I've talked with some men about this. We do need to engage more men in the Me Too movement. And that has been one of our lapses, I think, as women. I guess Ben Affleck touched a woman's breast inappropriately maybe 10 years ago or something.
He did? But I don't remember.
I know in the beginning of the Me Too movement, he came out as a supporter, and then it was found that he had touched a woman 10 years prior. I think we have to have some room in the Me Too movement to say, for Ben Affleck to be able to say, I'm sorry, I actually know better now. I didn't know then.
That's all they have to say is, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, and I didn't know better then, but I am learning a lot now, and I do support your movement, and I want to help. So I think we have to give a place of recourse. We have to allow men who have made mistakes in the past and who are sincerely trying to do better now. I think the Me Too movement could really benefit from their support, because we're not going to change the world, but we do, in order for us to change the way the world treats women, men have to be involved in that. We can only, women aren't going to change the way that, women alone cannot change the way men perceive us overall.
Right.
Men have to be involved in that.
But, my take on it is that this is good for the men. It's unfortunate that they feel put on the spot, and threatened. I think it's liberating for men. It takes a lot of the burden, of the responsibility off of their shoulders. I mean, I can't imagine, to speak for the other side, I can't imagine having to just like do everything every single time, be expected to know how to get everything done, be always ready, be always hard, pay every bill, all of it, for like the equal pleasure that both should be having, right? So I think like taking the responsibility off of them is going to be amazing if they kind of like, rethink it and open up to it, and not, it's not like a definition of masculinity that you always have to lead the way and be in charge. It's like, enjoy the ride,
Absolutely.
Let her do things to you as well. Ask for her to give you what you're giving her. Speak up for yourself from the receiving end, from like a passive place also of like receiving pleasure and not just, performance. So I think, if we liberate men from that role, we also feminize them enough to allow them the other side of pleasure, like wearing pretty things, making themselves the object of desire maybe as well, right? And definitely free them from like the provider sex, where like from the first minute until the end of the affair, relationship, quickie, whatever it is, you have your hand in your pocket, which I find unattractive, as if, again, from a feminist point of view. It's like, what's he paying for? Why is he paying? Like, it makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to bring it to a transactional.
It's not a trade.
Yeah, it's not a trade. He's not buying be transactional, yeah. So I think that there is a lot of room for like happiness and joy and liberation for men too, if they don't, if we phrase it, acceptingly rather than alienatingly.
Right? Absolutely, and I think, it would be so sexy for me to hear a man say, I don't have sex with a woman unless she tells me she wants to have sex with me.
I know.
Imagine being on a date with a guy, like, and he's like, I'm going to need to hear you say it. I'm going to need to hear you say, I want to have sex with you. Because You know, and I think that's, you know, when we're looking for change.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I also think it's a very good self-protector for men to
right.
make sure
I think that would be beautiful, you know, and then having a man say, oh, you know, I you know, can I, whatever, would you, you know, fist me, or would you play with my balls, or would you, you know, things that
Absolutely.
give the woman temporarily the upper hand, the power, so there is a true exchange,
right.
You know, instead
right.
of like, she's at the bottom, maybe like she sits on top of him,
right,
and that's the end of that, but he's always working it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, which, you know, if we want better sex, we have to take charge.
I say we are the owners of our orgasms.
Right.
I teach a lot of classes where the men come in and they want to give this woman an orgasm. And she's completely stressed out because he's trying so hard to give her an orgasm, which, of course, makes sure that she's never going to have one because she knows he's trying and he's like, an hour has gone by and he still hasn't come.
Oh, my God,
so she's got more stress because she's got all this stress going on.
Oh.
And so I think it's really important for women to take responsibility. We are the owners of our own orgasms.
Yes, we are.
I speak to so many women and they don't even know what they like in bed. They don't know what makes them come.
That's
and
okay. You gotta find out.
Right. You have to practice.
Yeah.
You have to find out.
We're
you
all
have
different.
Right. And he's only going to do what his last girlfriend liked.
Exactly.
That's all he knows.
That's it. That's all he knows. He knows to repeat that. Exactly. That's very important. Yeah. And we all have totally different sexual...
Everyone's different. It's just like we all like different foods.
Yeah, yeah. Or like, you know, I compare it to our fingerprints. You know, that's how different each one of us is sexually. You know, so just saying, okay, I can teach you what the clitoris does. You know, that's a generalization. But you yourself, as you said, you have to take charge of your physical pleasure because it's your life.
Absolutely.
Right.
And who wants to fake it?
Oh my God! No more faking, please.
Yeah, who wants to fake
it? If we have achieved one thing after like 3 waves of feminism and, you know, trying and talking and writing and publishing, it's just don't fake it. Don't fake it. Yeah, ladies.
Hopefully the Me Too movement will stop that.
Yeah. So, well, we have a few minutes. Let's see if we have something that you want to bring up that we haven't covered. We're good?
I think we're all good. Is there any questions? I mean, I think one of the most important things that people can do, like you said, is know what turns them on sexually. And if you get my book, Sex in South Beach, it'll do exactly what Eve says you should do, which is think about what you want, talk about what you want. It's especially good for single people when they're in between relationships to think about what they want so that when you are with your next partner, you're prepared. You've practiced in the mirror. You've said some things. And it's important to know that honesty, I think, is really, really respected in every single sexual exchange. Exactly. So if you say, I want to have sex with you, I hope it's going to be great tonight, but I'm going to let you know there is no possibility for a relationship. We might have sex like a few more times. Every time I come to town, I can call you and we can have sex, but I'm a bad seed. I love that song, Bad at Love. Woo, I'm bad at love. I don't do relationships. Or because some people really don't do relationships, so they should stop faking out their partners. So I also think honesty, you don't want to walk in on your partner. The reason why we want to talk about sex and make it easy for your partners to talk to you about sex is because before anyone else knows what's on your partner's mind, what they're thinking about sexually, don't you want to be the first one to know? Right. You don't have to say yes.
And if you speak up honestly and you admit everything, they will feel much more comfortable telling you everything because they won't feel that you will reject them or turn around and leave. You know, this is the main reason people lie. They think that they will be, you know, seen as like bad or evil. They will be dropped, they will be left, and they're afraid of the unknown, so they start falling into a pattern of like lies. So speaking your truth, at least your truth as it has been until this moment, because our truth changes and evolves, you know, and also another important aspect inside the sexual truth is the monogamous truth, you know. Do you like monogamy? Do you like polyamory? Do you
absolutely?
Do you want to be open to you know, more affairs, sex with other people for the time being, for as long as you agree, without talking about it, with talking about it, together with a partner, apart? I mean, there's like numerous combinations, and actually bringing that out in the open early on and respecting the truth.
Absolutely.
Instead of like wanting to change what the person tells you.
And also realizing that our sexual desires evolve.
Yeah.
And my saying, I say it every day to myself and everyone who I meet, nobody loves you like you do. So you have to love yourself enough to advocate for your own sexual pleasure.
Exactly.
It's just like when you go into your boss and you have to ask for a raise, you get a little nervous, you don't quite know how you're going to do it, but what are you going to do? Stick around being underpaid? No, you got to go get that raise.
Yeah.
The same with sex. Nobody loves you like you do. Nobody's going to take care of your sexual satisfaction except you. And the more that you love yourself, the more you will feel empowered to be able to communicate to your sexual partners, advocating for your own behalf. The more you realize, I do have to explore and figure out what turns me on.
Yeah.
And so that little saying says so much. And you know, those are the worst partners in relationships when people don't love themselves. Right. Those are the neediest people.
Oh my God,
They can't communicate. They just need. Yeah. And when people love themselves, they're so sexy, they're so attractive, and they're able to set standards that really align with their values. And I think sexually, women, we get into so many situations where we're like, I'll go with his values, not mine.
We're the caretakers, you know, and we feed the ego of the other. Yeah. And when we say love yourself, we don't mean from a narcissistic, we mean from an authentic place, you know. Get to know yourself and love and appreciate yourself the way you are, but not like all ego, because then, you know, that's what happens with so many of the needy people who don't love themselves, but they have the whole NPD thing. They don't know how to love themselves, but they want to suck the love out of everybody they meet and then discard them, and, you know, that's another episode.
That's a whole other, but loving yourself, like, I know my weaknesses, and I have to accept them.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of people, you say you talk too much. And at one point, I think I was in my 20s, I was like, I'm just going to have to accept this.
Yeah.
Because when I have something to say, I'm just going to open my mouth. I can't stop it.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And I spent some time you know, in your early 20s, you're trying to figure out who you are. Maybe I shouldn't talk. You know, so when I say love yourself, it's like really knowing who you are, knowing what your values are. And if anyone's looking for a relationship, they have to know, I said, what your 3 must-haves are and your 3 deal breakers.
Yeah, exactly.
And not 12 must-haves and 12 deal breakers. Yeah. You know, but 3.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's good advice. Yeah, I call it like your soft and your hard, your soft limit and your hard limit. You know, the deal breakers are the hard limits, things you are not going to change on, because whatever. Right. You have like childhood trauma, you have issues.
You don't want to have sex with dogs, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a deal breaker.
Because you love your dog.
Yes, because you're an animal rights advocate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today I was getting out of the house, go to an errand, and I think pops up on YouTube, and it's this girl, and her dog is humping her foot, which my dog, by the way, does endlessly. And every dog I've had, you know, will hump my dog. But her dog, like, went on, and he came.
Oh my God! And she let him.
The food, and then it's on my YouTube, and I haven't even had breakfast.
We need to call PETA. We need to call PETA. That is animal abuse.
Eek! No! What? I'm in the car.
Yes, that is disgusting. Yeah. But
so
see,
now
that girl,
I know my limit.
Now, if you're dating that girl,
she has no limits.
Wouldn't you want to see that video before you get serious with that girl?
God.
You need to see that video first.
When I pick up her dog, I want to run away with her.
Right, exactly.
Get the dog out of that place.
Exactly.
Yeah, so your hard limits.
Yes.
Like no other species.
Yes. No other species.
It's an example.
Right. And then your must-haves. What must you have?
And your must-haves, yeah.
You know, and those are harder to think about than your deal breakers.
Yeah.
People are like, what must I have? Yeah. And we think, someone who's open to communication.
Exactly. We think truth and honesty.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be one.
Right. You think about, but it's worth naming. And when you're dating someone, I tell my husband all the time, you know, my must-haves and deal breakers are very different now than they were 11 years ago when I met him.
Definitely, yeah.
And so sometimes I say, okay, we're not going to get divorced. Let's pretend like I do this to my poor husband all the time.
He's also your best client.
Yes. I'm like, let's just, you can date me. You can see if I want to be with you. So I actually try to start our relationship over. Like, okay, let's just start from the beginning. Like we just met. And we pretend like we met at the bar, and I tell him about my husband. I've got this husband at home. This is what he's doing. And then, but we try to start over. These are my new must-haves and deal breakers. And it gives me an opportunity to say, you know, now I need good credit. You know, maybe that wasn't important when I was a kid, but now I don't want to get into a long-term relationship because that's going to mess up my sex life. If I'm worried about whether or not, you know, the IRS is coming for you. And I say that now because we're much older. Most people, you know, well, I'm much older than I was when I was I never thought about credit when I was a kid.
Of course
or someone needs good credit.
Oh my God, yes.
But now, oh my gosh, that's number one reason for divorce are financial problems.
Yeah.
You know, so you
especially when you have children, because then it's not you, it's also your child you're thinking of, and the whole future of the child.
Right. Yeah. When you're
dating, financial future.
Exactly. So these types of things, so your must-haves and your deal breakers do change over time. And I know a couple, they've been married for 13 years. They did not start off as swingers, but they're swingers now.
Yeah, I know many couples.
And they're mutual. It was a mutual decision.
And it saved the marriage.
And it just remembering that our sexual desires do evolve.
Yeah, completely. And you become much more at ease with things that, you know, to begin with would have been unthinkable. Because of course, when you're first in love, the idea of like your guy with someone else is like hell. But 10 years into it, if that means you're also getting to have someone else and you still don't lose the marriage, it becomes, you know, a totally different suggestion.
Absolutely. I just got back from Curacao, which happens to have the largest brothel in the Caribbean.
Wow.
Partially run by the government. Wow. It was established by the government and priests.
Wow.
But the interesting thing about it was at the resort where we were staying, by the end of the week, I was pretty confident that a lot of those women go there with their husbands so that their husband can go to the brothel.
Wow.
So I was like, I don't think that couple's had sex for a very long time, but she's okay with him going.
Right, because it keeps them happy and it keeps the marriage and whatever.
They know what their vacations to Curacao are about. You know?
A lot of people go to, you know, resorts like that especially for swapping. Because they don't want to do it where they live. They don't want to do it where they might like run into someone who knows someone, etc. Right? So they'll do it only on their trips and they get it out of their systems. And then they come back home, and it's, you know, life as usual, and that's totally legit, you know.
Right.
There are all kinds of iterations if you look for it, if you know your current needs, you know, and you speak them up, But I definitely think that one of the first must-haves has to be honesty, you know, that speak the truth, stay honest. You know, I think that that's like a place to begin with, and then you can come up with, the rest.
Right. They're unique to everyone, whatever you're looking for.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming. I mean, this was just, you know...
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it went by so beautifully and fast. So we have to do it again. We can do it again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Two ladies who live in South Beach who focus on sex.
Who talk about sex all the time.
Yes. The world's been looking for us.
Thank you again, Dr. Sonjia,
so
Kenya. Please look her up, and you can find her contact on my Instagram, YouTube, etc. And thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer here on Jolt Radio. And until next Friday, speak sex. That was fun, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna get some of the photos.